Everybody good? Y'all ready for who used to say we have a really big show for you tonight? Who is that? Remember that? Ed Sullivan, man. I must be the oldest guy here. That's right. We have a really big show for you tonight. Yeah, he'd bring all the talent on and stuff, man. I used to like Ed Sullivan. I mean, I saw some stuff live for the first time. Elvis Presley, Beatles, you name them, man. We go way back. Hey, pay attention now. I'm down here for y'all. How long y'all spend together with each other? You've been together all day, right? Y'all can do that stuff all day long. So we just had a happy holiday locked up, right? Tell the truth. It sucked. I know it did. I don't know. I don't think I take anything for granted, to be honest with you. But think about this when you go back up. This is my 41st in a row holiday season. And I got to tell you the truth. The first one was tough, being away from home, 7,000 miles from the house, not really having no friends or anything other than my recovery people. And I was new in recovery, so it wasn't that easy making friends for me, as you can imagine. And but few years go by, you get used to the holiday season. Then you get a rhythm going, a routine going. And I say that because early recovery is different than middle recovery and older recovery. And what's different about it, when we're new, we're still trying to find our way, get our sea legs, figure out how this thing works. Like you guys, you're all bonded up in here, whether you know it or not. I can see it. You are a community. That's a good thing. So never forget, if you have the ability to make community work here, you can certainly make community work out there. And you folks are comfortable with one another. You feel at ease with one another. You share some stuff with one another. Not everybody. That ain't everybody's story. But the ones that been here a while, I see how the ladies interact with one another. And I see the men been around for a while too. And that's a skill set you develop while you were here, whether you know it or not. So when you get out and you reconnect with community, you'll have a skill set you've already established. I can do this. I can connect to community. And I tell you why that's so important, because if you don't learn to connect with community while you're here, whatever you got available to you, it might make it difficult out there. And don't think that this community connection doesn't go for you, because it really does. We were designed to have community and be connected. You don't want to get outside. It's scary relocating on the outside away from community. You think your family is going to be good enough? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But if your family was good enough, why are you here in the first place? So something needed to change, Think about that. A lot of us in recovery, the first thing a lot of us do is we start thinking, why this doesn't go for me, why this, we separate out instead of separating in. We focus on the differences and not the similarities. Wherever you go in life, if you focus on the similarities and you put some energy in how can I fit in and make this work, chances are good that'll probably be your story. But if you're going to say, you know what, I'm not even going to bother because this don't go for me, chances are good you might repeat past problems and behaviors, and you really don't want to do that. Don't let this time be for nothing. When you leave here a smarter, wiser, more experienced recovery person. Real simple stuff. There's nothing complicated about recovery. Recovery is as simple as what you do. If you do recovery-related stuff, you're going to get recovery-related results. If you do old behavior stuff, you're going to get old behavior results. Now that, I would bank on that. I'd bet money on that. Now, speaking tonight, I never thought I'd see the day where he'd be coming up and him being your speaker, okay? I saw him struggle early. I saw him do some really stupid things, some things I thought would have disqualified him for quality recovery one day. But he was a good reminder on how bad we can be and how stupid of things we can do and still hang in there and almost make it. I wouldn't say he made it because he's still early in his own recovery. He got a long ways to go. But what I'm seeing out of this man today is amazing. And when I heard he was going to be speaking tonight, I got all excited because I'd like to actually see if he can put a talk together. You know what I mean? Because he can do little short talks pretty good. I've never seen a lengthy one before, so I'm excited about this length of talk. But I can assure you, he was probably as bad as anybody I've ever seen. You know how you meet people. Sometimes you say to yourself, "Well, they're dead man walking." You know he was dead man walking when I met him, and the first, I don't know, 6 months, you was continuing to be a dead man walking. And then that crap you pulled in front of the courthouse ODing and shit. I thought, well, that was a ballsy move, you know. But here's what I seen different out of this man. This last go around, he actually focused on the similarities. He actually did the work. He actually, would follow suggestions. But something special happened, and this special happens to all of us along the way. Happened to me, it happened to Marshall, it happened to Steve and Henry, and I see it happening to Chris. We actually put a sincere interest in serving other people in front of ourselves. And in service, we talk a lot about service work, get involved in service, do things for other people, expect nothing in return. That's where the hit is. That's where the real blessing is. And I see him doing a lot of stuff for other people and dogs, not just people. And he really doesn't expect a whole lot in return, but I see him coming out of it being a more happier, gentler gentleman. I mean, this guy, he's turning out to be quite the recovering star, I think. Now, I'll warn and remind everybody, what we did yesterday may not carry us through today. So we got to do this stuff all over again, a day at a time. Each day I get up, it's God's will, not mine. What can I do to, make it through the day that's service related? And here it is, what is it, 5:15? And I've had a pretty good day so far. I feel good about what I'm doing. I feel like I might make it till midnight, go to sleep. So anyways, let's give a warm welcome for Chris and hear what he got to say tonight. Proud of you. I love you.
My name's Chris, and I'm an addict.
Hey, Chris.
And John was saying about that sincere moment when I made the decision that this was not the life I wanted to live anymore. And I remember it was during COVID when I was incarcerated the last time, which was a little over years ago. And I was sitting in the jail, and I call it blessed. I was able to have a window that was able to see out to the public, so I could watch the interstate, watch people driving by. But every night there was a possum that used to come out, and he'd run out and he'd, frolic through the bushes and do his thing, and he'd eat and do what he does. And I thought, man, and this fucking, am I allowed to curse or do I need to stop? Okay. Because I do a lot. But I remember seeing this possum coming out of his bushes every night. He'd eat and all this, and I'm like, man, this little thing's got more freedom than me. And it was a direct result of the actions that I keep doing. I keep getting incarcerated, right? The first time I was incarcerated, I was 16 years old. I did a 3.5-year bid. And then the last time I was 36. So for 20 years, I've been repeating the same process. And, I didn't know what it took. I knew what it took to get out. I knew how to, make the court sound really good. I know how to pass off a program. I know how to get through a program so that the court will let me out. And then I would just go back to doing what I want to do. Because the whole time I've ever been incarcerated, it was just, all right, what's my release date? What am I, I don't have a plan for what I'm going to do when I get out. And like John said, there was that sense of community, right? You make it when you're in the walls, I call it. I had a gentleman that went through another program that was in there. He was in there for the same reason he had used. And we were both in there for violations. And we got together and we would work in the kitchen. We'd get off work, about 1 o'clock. We'd take our shower, do our workout. We'd eat dinner. And then we grabbed a book and we started reading and doing book studies, just reading from the literature, something simple like that. I made that choice when I was there because I knew that those choices would carry me into success when I got out. My release date was October 10th, 2021, which happened to be a Sunday. And if anybody knows, you got to wait to check in till the next day. The only thing that for me checking in was sitting in a hotel room that night till the probation office opened the next day. I know that me and hotel rooms don't get along. I'm not successful in a hotel room. I know that. So I reached out to the reentry lady while I was incarcerated, and I asked her if she would, find a way for me to be able to go straight from on Sunday when I got out at 6 a.m. straight up to Richmond so I could get back to somewhere that was successful for me. And she was able to pull that off. So I never had to check into probation. When I did my check-in, I was able to just call her. I did a, little video chat so she could see me. They faxed the paperwork. I signed it. I faxed it back. Never even saw my probation officer one time in the 16 months I was on probation before she released me. And she released me from an email. I never even had to go see her to sign paperwork. She released me over email. And that's all because I was doing the next right thing. A little bit about me, right? I started using real early on. I was, I think, 12, the first time I put a substance into my body, and I didn't stop until I was 36. This last time, like John said, the last time I used, I used in a courthouse parking lot, and I OD'd in the courthouse parking lot. I ended up in a coma for 4 days. And that really didn't, like, the death part didn't scare me, right? Because to me, death is easy. Death is an easy way out, right? I know that I can go out there and use, and I don't have to deal with the consequences, right? But what I do is I put those consequences on my entire family. And when I came out of it, luckily I came out of the coma, and my sister had to make all these medical decisions, and right, and luckily I'd signed power of attorney over to her when I was incarcerated, so she already had these medical decision capabilities. And when she got out, the doctor told me I was a 5% chance to live. So 95% of the people that are in that situation end up, dying. My sister decided not to pull the plug, and I made it out. But having that conversation with her after I got out and being reminded of the pain that I've caused over the direct result of what I'm doing, I got tired of doing that shit. I got tired of hurting people around me, right? Because it's not just me that I'm hurting. I always thought it was me. I'm just hurting me. Who am I hurting? And then once I see it, then it starts to come together. Like, man, I'm really like affecting these people that are around me, the people that love me. And with that being said, we haven't really seen each other, since 2018 when I was incarcerated, for the things that I keep going back to jail for. And she reached out to me a couple months ago, and she's actually going to fly in from Denver in February to be a part of my 3-year celebration. So, like these, like, and those are things I wouldn't have had back if I would have went back to use it. My sister would have wrote me off. She would have ignored me. Like, those are the gifts that I got back, is like, people want to be around me today. My family wants to love me today. A couple of days ago, I'm sitting, it's obviously Christmas just happened. I'm using the restroom, and my roommate, she knocks on the door and is like, "Hey, are you using the bathroom?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She slides a card under the door, and it's my aunt. So my little cousin's getting married, and they want me to be at the wedding. Like, I haven't seen my aunt and my cousin since my father passed away back in 2018. Now they want me to drive all the way up to Pennsylvania and be, come up there and spend a whole weekend with them and be a part of their, her happiest moment in her life. And those are things that I would never have done if I would have got back out and kept using. If I would have went back to using or the lifestyle and been here, like, I wouldn't have even been afforded those opportunities. He talks about like the connection piece. John spoke about that. And, Christmas is a real tough time for me because I lost both my mother and my father about 16 months apart when I was in active addiction. So I wasn't present for the end of their life, and I wasn't really present for their funerals. And like, I disrespected them for real, by showing up the way I did. But with that being said, like, I've developed a community now that, like, people, came over to my house. Like, I have my own house today where I had a bunch of friends come over yesterday. We ordered Chinese food. We pulled the mattress out and put it on the floor. We watched football. I had 4 dogs out there running around the house because I foster dogs now. So when people go into treatment, I'll take your dog for you and hold it at my house. So when you go to treatment, when you get out 28 days later, you get your dog back. Like those are things that, like, they really mean something to me today. Because, like, I know when I was using, I had 2 dogs, right? And the only thing I cared about was those dogs. Like, I would go days without eating to, get that next one in me. But I would sure enough go to the, like, Walmart and throw a bag of dog food over my shoulder, and I'd walk out and steal the dog food before I'd steal food for myself. My dogs were like family to me, and that's how they are still to this day. But I know that that's a real barrier for people that want to go into treatment. Oh, I got a dog. What am I going to do with my dog? I'll never see my dog again. I got to give it to the SPCA, and somebody else will take it. And, those are things that, like, I know because that happened to me. I had to give up both of my dogs when I was incarcerated because they didn't have anywhere to go. SPCA came and got them when they seized the house that I had, and that house I ended up having to sell that house. So I didn't have a place to even go home to when I got out. The first time I came up to Richmond, I came up with the intent of blowing smoke up the court's ass. That was my whole plan, was to just get by, do this 28 days, go back to doing what I want to do, and find a way to beat the system. Because I got really good at beating the system over the course of 20 years. I got some practice in me, right? I got a little bit of knowledge on how to do that. And that was my entire plan. I made it 9 days before I was incarcerated again, overusing and overdosing in the hotel room. I ended up doing about 18 months, consecutive between the two jurisdictions that I had to face for. I came back out. I did about 7 months, and then I did the exact same thing again. But like John said, I went to the courthouse. I sat in the courthouse while my friend went into court, and I decided to get high in the parking lot. And I OD'd in the parking lot while he was inside court, in Winchester, which means already I left the jurisdiction. I'm driving a car with no license. I'm using all while being on probation. That's the kind of decision that when I get to using, that's what I do. I don't care what shit. I don't care about none of the laws. I'm doing what I want to do. Damn the rest. And I remember when I got out, of the hospital, because I got out and I was in the mindset like I'm going to go back to jail. I already know the violation's coming because the probation office was involved in all this. I leave Winchester and I go to West Virginia and I'm going towards Pennsylvania. I'm on the run. I'm scoring already. But the craziest part about it, I'm in the gown that the hospital gives you. I didn't even have clothes. I had a gown. I had my ass all out, just tied up. Like that's where my addiction takes me, right? And I remember calling, back to the RCO that I went through, which happens to be the one that comes in here. And there was a gentleman on the phone. His name was Cricket. I don't know if y'all ever got a chance to meet him, but he was, I was talking to someone on the phone and he overheard me talking. And he said, hold on a minute. He interrupts the conversation and, go back and forth a little bit. Oh, I got to get clothes. I'm trying to make all the excuses why I can't come back. Because I don't want to come back and get arrested because I'm figuring the police are going to be there waiting for me. That was my thought. And, through the whole thing, he said, the one thing he said that stood out was come back to where the love is. And, I still went and did what I did because I knew I was going back to jail. So I went and did that part and then I came back. But this was a Friday night, when I got released. And, 3 of the staff members stayed until like 7 o'clock when I got back, right? They get off at 4:30, 5 o'clock every day. They stayed till 7 just to, meet me when I got back. John happened to be one of them. Our COO, Jesse, who happened to be one in Cricket, right? They were all a part of like my decision of like trying to get me to stay. Like that's how much they cared. On a Friday after putting in 60 hours a week, they still stayed a couple more hours to help me, make the next decision, right? And, so I did. I made the decision. I was like, all right, I'll do whatever y'all got to say, right? I'll do whatever it takes. I gave the keys up. It was somebody else's car. I gave the keys up. I gave my phone up. They gave my wallet. I gave them everything I had. I went home that night, went to sleep, came back the next day. They eventually moved me houses to a different setting, which was probably the best thing they ever could have done for me. And about 12 days later, the violation came. My probation officer, she called me and said, hey, I need to see you at 4:30. I said, I know exactly what 4:30 means. That means you're going to have cops waiting on me. So I called her. I said, I'm not coming to turn myself in Henrico because I'm from another jurisdiction. You're going to put me on COVID watch here, and then I'm going on a COVID watch somewhere else. And I said, I'll just take myself down to the jail that I'm from. And the same guy that was at my house yesterday, I called him, right? And when I called him, I was like, look, man, I'm running. I was like, I'm just letting you know, like, you're not going to see me for a while. Like, I'm running. I'm going to get incarcerated. Like, I gave him this whole plan. And he said, hey, man, just calm down. Why don't you, just come talk to me for a minute? And I was like, all right, let me drop this guy off. And, and I knew what I was doing was calling somebody that was going to hold me accountable and help me make the right choice. But I wasn't quite ready to, let my ego down and say, I need fucking help. That's really what it boiled down to. But the long and the short, the gentleman that I saw, he ended up, it was technically against the rules. Because we ended up going after 11 o'clock. We were past curfew. But he borrowed somebody else's car, him and another guy, and they rode me down to Williamsburg and they let me turn myself in. I was sat there for about 3 hours in the parking lot because I wanted to smoke my whole pack of cigarettes. Like, that's the coolest thing ever. It's like just power down to 12 cigarettes and then turn myself in, knowing I'm a fiend for one when I get in there. But that was the decision I made. So, I did that. We ended up singing a bunch of karaoke, a bunch of songs, and I got into this somewhat familiar mindset. And then I went and turned myself in. And, I did, like I said, I did a 14-day quarantine period. I got really lucky. I was able to get right to working, in a work pod, which was really sweet because, they didn't have, they don't have officers in the pod where I'm at. You have your own rec yard. The door's open. You can go out at 4 a.m, look at the stars if you want, all that kind of stuff. It was pretty cool. Considering I'm incarcerated, right? Considering what I'm losing. But like I said, we started doing those book studies. We started reading from the literature every night and we just had these conversations. And through the process, I, didn't know at the time, but this guy had already gone through all of the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous. And he was, without me even knowing it, he's guiding me through the process, right? He's asking those questions that make me think about why I do what I do. And I remember one particular conversation we had. We were in the dish pit because we were with a bunch of knuckleheads that just are there to play and have a good time and steal food from the kitchen and eat what they want. And we didn't want to know parts of that. So we were in the dish pit, kind of just standing there talking, and we were talking about fear, right? And how fear can become a motivator, right? It's scary, right? Fear can be really scary because like I can get really scared and make the wrong decision, but I can also use fear as a motivator to I don't want to be alone, right? So I know exactly what I got to do, not be alone. I got to call somebody. I got to tell them like, hey, what are you doing? I want to hang out. I want to go, when I leave here, I'm going to dinner with my home group, and then I have a home group meeting. I won't probably make it home till about 10 o'clock tonight. I left the house at 4:30 this morning to get to the gym. Like my day is completely eaten up with being around people, and they're all people that are in recovery. I'm not like getting up in the morning, hanging out with recovery, and then shooting over to like Gilpin Courts and like going over there and shooting the shit on the power box and then turning around and going back to work. Like I don't do that because I know what, those areas bring me. Those areas are not conducive to my success. I'm not there yet. I'm not one of those people that can go into, places where drugs are being, used and be successful. I'm not that person. Now I do 12-step calls, as we call them, where like if somebody calls me and says, hey man, I'm ready for some help, I'll go pick them up. I've done that before. I've driven cars. I've gone to North Carolina. I've been to North Carolina twice in the last month to pick people up and bring them back to Richmond. But I tell them right up front, I said, one, you got no drugs in the car, and two, use it whatever the fuck you got. Use it all, right? Because when you come back, I want you to be done. I want you to thoroughly have your ass kicked and be done. Because that's what it took for me. I had to have a thorough ass whooping before I was ready to actually make the decision to like give it up, right? I had to keep losing stuff. I had to keep giving. Well, I don't say lose, right? That's a poor choice of words. I gave my shit away. I gave my freedom away. I gave the house that my parents worked their whole lives for that I got when they passed away. I gave that house away. I lost my dogs. I lost everything I've owned. When I showed up to the recovery house the first time, I showed up in the orange shorts that they give you for like playing basketball, or like the shower shorts. I had the same slides on that y'all have, but they're orange, and I had a white t-shirt. That's all I had when I showed up because I'd lost everything else. That was it. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have a wallet. I had to go to the bank and get a bank card issued. I still don't have an ID card from Virginia, right? I still don't. I use my passport, which luckily I was able to hold on to. And that's the form of ID. I just never went to the DMV and got one, but I'm going to have to soon. I gave everything that I owned and everything that meant something to me away to get that next one. And that was the last time I used was February 5th, 2021. That's the day that I made the decision to to finally all right, I'm going to do something different. Right. So with God's grace and mercy, in February, I'll be able to celebrate those 3 years clean. And I've gotten some stuff back today, right? Like I've got a job that I thoroughly, absolutely love. I love what I do. Like John said, I'm really good at short conversations, right? So like my job in particular is urine screens and medications, right? So for somebody that's tried to beat urine screens for 20 years, my job is to now make sure y'all can't beat me doing urine screens. And then I help facilitate making sure that medications are given out and taken properly at the organization I'm in. So I have these like short windows to have these conversations with people. It's like less than 5 minutes that I get to talk to, 20, 30 different people a day. So I have the opportunity to help somebody every day. And it's gotten to the point now where like people will just come up to my office and hang out and just want to have chats. And like I'll have people in there so long that I'll get a call and say, hey man, what are you doing? You got people in the hallway waiting. But I get lost in conversation because I truly love helping the next person. I like it when somebody comes to me and says, hey man, I need some help. I don't know what I'm doing, because that's the same thing that I did for somebody and they gave me the answer when I needed it. And that's what I've been taught to do. That's a learned behavior, right? I didn't learn how to get clean on my own, just like the same time first time I used, I didn't know how to, draw stuff up in a needle. I didn't know how to smoke crack out of a can. I didn't know how to do that. I had to be taught that, right? So like the same process, I have to be taught how to not do that anymore, right? And the only way to do that is by people that have done it. People that know how to stay clean. Because I can get clean. I know how to get clean. It's to, get incarcerated or to, overdose where I can't use anymore. And then I'm like, oh, I got 4 or 5 days clean. I'm good now. And then I use again, and then, the rest is history. But I didn't know how to sustain staying clean, and through this, last 2.5 years, like I said, I've been able to surround myself with people that have a lot more clean time than me and have wisdom in these things, right? I got the job that I have, You know, people told me like I'd be really good at this, so I should give it a shot. And so I didn't, the first 4 or 5 months, I'd say, of doing this job, I kind of volunteered. I didn't get paid for it. I worked a landscaping job during the day. I'd get off around 3, and then I'd shoot up to where the church is, and I would just sit in the office and I'd help however I could. And then eventually the gentleman that had the position, you know, decided he wanted to go somewhere else. He took another job, and they were like, hey, do you want that? And I was like, sure. That was literally my job interview, you know, because I showed up. I put myself in position for the next person to say, hey, man, but he'd be pretty good at that. Like, he's already doing it. Like, let's let him give him a shot. And it's been a year and a half now I've been in that same position. I don't think I've ever held a job more than a year and a half of my life, you know, to be honest with you. Like, I bounced from job to job throughout my whole life because it's real easy for me to quit one and get another job. I worked in restaurants, right? So, like, anybody knows, like, restaurants are real easy to get a job in. Like, you can quit one and just jump right into another one. It's real easy. But something like this is not the easiest field to just jump into, right? Like, it took me, you know, working for some time before people saw that I was really serious about what I was doing. You know, like John said, you know, I came back and took some suggestions when I first got here. I took most of the suggestions. I'm not even going to lie to you and tell you I took every single one. There was a couple things that a bunch of my friends put on me, rules that I had, right? There was like no going to certain places, no doing certain things. Most of those I did. Now, obviously, I was incarcerated for, 10 months this last time so that you can figure out which one I broke. When I first got out, I wanted to have companionship, right? So I broke that one. And, I did what I did. Luckily, I was able to make it through it when it didn't work out. Because one of the most stressful things when you first get into recovery is trying to get in a relationship, and you get in a relationship and the person leaves and all of a sudden you feel empty. And, the quickest way for us to not feel empty is to use, right? I know how to fill that void unspiritually, but how do I do it spiritually? And that was something I had to learn from people that have gone through it before. Like I said, the same guy that that took me to the jail when I got out that morning, on the 10th of October of 2021, he was there, and he met me at the church, and we ended up going down to the river. We walked around for the river for a little while, just kind of chatted, hung out. We went out and got something to eat, and he dropped me off at the house. I stayed at the house that night, and then I checked myself back into the program the next day. And instead of going into like the second phase of the program, I started all the way at the beginning. I gave it all back up again. I came in and said, I don't, y'all tell me what's best. And they put me in the intensive program. And they took my phone again. They took all my stuff away again. And it's what I needed. Because like for me, the time when I get out of jail to like the time I need to start figuring stuff out, when you walk out of these doors, you walk out and you got to figure it out right away, right? You got to figure out rent. You got to figure out how you going to get to work, how you going to pay your bills, where you going to sleep at night, how you going to eat. All that's got to be figured out. So when I came out, all that was already figured out for me. I didn't have to figure none of it out. I said, I need help. They said, oh, here you go. And they housed me. They fed me. They, took me where I needed to go to appointments. They did everything for me for 28 days, which gave me 28 days to figure out what the next step was. So it was a nice transition period from incarceration to like freedom again, and where I had like semi-freedom. And it was exactly what I needed to slow me down, because I go 100 miles an hour to anything I do. Whatever, it doesn't make a difference what it is. If I'm focused on recovery, it's 100 miles an hour. If I'm using it, it's 100 miles an hour at it. I don't know moderation. That's not something that's, that's not a skill that I've developed yet. Like I said, I'm one of those people that now I've developed this really good routine, right? Because I thrive, just like I recognize that when I'm in jail, when I got to wake up at a certain time and be at work a certain time, I do really well at that, right? When I'm told this is where I need to be at certain times, I'm really good when I come to a place like this. So I took that same knowledge of being good at it and translated it into my life now. I'm up every morning at 4:00. And by 4:30, I leave my house. By 5:00, I'm at the gym. I leave the gym at 8:00. I, take my shower. I go to work. I get off work. I go to a meeting. I go home. I make dinner. I feed my dogs. I take them out. I go to sleep. I do it again the next day. That's Monday through Friday. Now, Saturday and Sunday, obviously, they vary a little bit because I don't have work. So I figure some stuff out. But like, I found that when the same thing that people told me is like I thrive in routine is something I've used to like translate into my life now, where I became successful at thriving in a different routine. I just had to figure out what routine worked for me, right? Because my routine might not work for you. You might not like getting up at 4:00 in the morning to go to the gym. I love getting up at 4:00 in the morning and going to the gym because nobody else is there. I can put my headphones in. I get access to all the equipment. It feels like my space. And I put my music in my ears, and I tune the world out for about 3 hours. The first 3 hours of my day is the exact way I want it. And then at 8 o'clock comes and I clock into work and I start working. But I found that for me, that in the morning, that time that I need is for me, it's like meditation, right? Somebody told me when years ago when I was trying this 1 or 2 times before this, that meditation is anything that allows you to just clear your head. It doesn't have to be like, you see people in the quiet room and they're humming and they got the, music. That doesn't have to be your form of meditation. Some people, like when they get to cleaning, they forget about their day. Some people, when they're getting the gym, they forget about their day. Well, for me, the gym is what it does for me. When I'm there, it's all about me. I'm focused on what I need to do. I got music going, and I put my phones in the corner. I have 2 phones. I put both of them in the corner. I connect to the Bluetooth, and I just ignore the phones for 3 hours. I put them on Do Not Disturb. And that first 3 hours of the day is all about me. And then, like John said, getting a little bit, when you get selfless, is from 8 o'clock on, it's about the next person who needs help, right? I had a friend, his girlfriend broke up with him, just before Christmas happened. And I've known this guy. This is one of those guys that I went to North Carolina and picked up from, where he was, when he was using him, brought him back. And he called me and said, man, my girlfriend broke up with me. And I said, well, where are you at? He gave me the address of where he's at. I said, I'll be there in a few minutes. I'll come pick you up. We'll figure something out for the day. He was with me Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and I took him to the gym with me and I tried to get him into that routine. He didn't care for it. He's too sore to go today. He did not want to get up this morning. But he also called me at the end of the day and said, look, man, my home group's not meeting today. He's like, can you pick me up and take me to your meeting that you're going to? And I said, absolutely. I'm going to the jail. When I leave the jail, I'll come get you. And that's the stuff that people did for me, and it became really easy for me to be willing to do it, because without the help that somebody afforded me when I first got here, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So like now I know how to help the next person that needs help, right? Like I know what it means to like get that hug, to be told like I love you, to be accepted as screwed up as I am. I'm trying to keep my language down some. As screwed up as I was when I first got here, for people to accept me just the way I was and to allow me to keep coming back and try again, to take me just as messed up as I was and be like, here, this is what you need to do. And when I messed up, they still kept the doors open for me the next time I came back. Right. And that's what it took. Like I said, when I got here, both my parents have passed away. My sister lives in Denver. So I don't really have family around here. Right. So I developed my sense of family. Right. My family is now consisted of people that I know that want the best for me, because that's really what family is. Family they're people that really want the best for you. They want to see you succeed at almost to their own expense. Like they're willing to give up some of themselves to like make sure that you succeed. And I found people in my life today that like help me do that. I have a chosen family today. It's not like the family I was born into, but I have a chosen family. And my chosen family means more to me than all my blood family, because they were willing to walk away when I was at my worst. My chosen family came running to me when I was at my worst. And I'm forever grateful for that. The people that I hated when I first got here, because of the way they carried themselves, I absolutely love those people today. Like there's so much that's changed in my life, as a result of this process. I know I do 12 steps, I do Narcotics Anonymous. That's my particular pathway. Right. And I was just doing the 6 and the 7 step, right? And I'm trying to get them done real fast, because when my sister comes in Denver, or from Denver, excuse me, in February, I want to be able to do make my amends. I want to sit down and have that conversation with her about what I did to her, how she feels. And the only way to do that is to complete the steps that are before it. So I did 6 and 7. I did them pretty well back to back. And through this whole process, my sponsor sitting down having these conversations, I found out that all of the stuff that I do, all these behaviors that I do, are rooted in fear. I will people please you because I'm afraid that you won't like me. I won't break up with you because I don't want to be alone. I'll do stuff, I'll do things that just because I fear whatever it is. Right. And when I figured out when the root of it is all fear, now the easiest thing for me to think about is how simple it is. I got one defect I really got to work on. And that's that fear piece. If I can conquer that fear piece, then the rest of it becomes a lot easier to deal with, right? And I got into 7, and 7, talks about turning it over to the being willing to have God remove all those defects of character, right? So I gotta be willing to let Him remove one defect from my life. If I can get rid of that fear, then the rest of the stuff kind of falls into place. My life gets pretty easy. The self-worth the lack of self-worth that I have goes away. The low self-esteem, the way I view myself, right? All those things go away, because I don't really, if I don't fear the way you look at me, now my self-esteem is not the same. I don't care what you think of me. I'm happy with me today, right? I remember when I first got in here, I was first coming into the program that I was in, and there's this like a whole series of questions that they ask you, and I really don't remember all of them. I was just kind of spitting through, but I do remember one. There was one that asked me, who said, what do you want? What do you want out of your recovery? And my answer was simple. I was like, I want to be happy. That's it. I don't know what it takes to get happy, because for so many years I tried to find happiness, right? I remember the first time I used when I was 12, I was extremely happy, right, during that time. And then I spent the next 20 years chasing that feeling, and I never got it. And so today I can say I'm happy, right? Like not every day is a good day for me. I'm not going to sit here and preach like all of a sudden my life got great. Like some days suck, some days are not easy. But the reality of it is that my life is far better today than it was 2.5 years ago when I was walking out of the hospital room. When I was turning myself in, going in and out of jail, bouncing from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. When I was getting arrested, I was, living the lifestyle of like, I don't know where I'm going to be the next morning. What am I going to do tomorrow? Like my life's immensely better today. They told me when I first got here, like make a list of like what you want to achieve. And then you're going to find out that you far exceed what you think that you're going to, like your limits, like where you're going to cap your life on. You want a job. I want a car. I want this. I want that. Like your life, you're going to far exceed the expectations of what you think that you deserve when you get into recovery. And it's been true to me. It's absolutely been true. Like I said, if you would have told me that, I'd have everything back that I had before and more, I would have told you you're a liar when you first got here. I didn't know how to manage money. Today I have like 4 bank accounts. Like those are things I just bought my first car since I've been home. I paid cash. I own my own car. I have a house that I've lived in for about 1.5 years now. I adopted a dog about 1 year ago. Now, I have that dog back. All those things that I lost, I have those things back. But it's only because the only reason I have those stuff back is because I trust myself with those again. Like the trust in me. Like I know that I'm not going to lose that stuff today. Because I'm not going to give it away. Because it's me now. It's me versus me in this this battle. And I know that I'm not always equipped to beat myself. Sometimes I need help, right? So I have some people in my life that help me when I need help. And when I think about it like that, right, it's like if I'm a little under 200 pounds right now, and it's me versus another 200-pound guy. Well, I got 4 or 5 more guys behind me. Like we're gonna win. Like it's just simple math to me. Like it makes sense. Like I have to think of like equations to make it make sense. Like always, what you say to me doesn't make sense, but when I like break it down into like my own way, that's what I have to do to make it make sense. It won't make sense any other way. And it's just that simple. If I'm carrying 200 pounds of baggage and I give you 100, now I'm only carrying 100. It's so much easier because you're helping me carry the weight. And those are the things that like real early on I learned, and I've been practicing for, consecutively for 2.5 years, or a little over 2.5 years. And I couldn't imagine what my life would be like without this process anymore. I know what let me correct that. I'm sorry. That was a lie. I know exactly what my life would be like. I know exactly what it'd be. I'd be wearing an orange jumpsuit. I'd be eating sweat meat for breakfast and oatmeal and like all the things that come along with it. I'd be using fresh scent soap. Like that's all those things. I know exactly what my future entails if I were to use again. I know exactly what it is, and I don't want it anymore. Like one of the addictions that's kind of showed up for me, right? And a lot of the people that work with me and that come into my office know I have a cologne addiction now, right? And it's because I've spent so long smelling like Irish Spring or Fresh Scent or Dove or whatever soaps that they let you get. That's all I smelled like. So like I still use Irish Spring because I do like the way it makes me feel. I like the smell that it gives me, but also when I get out, I put cologne on to cover up that smell because that smell still reminds me of jail, right? That's part of the reason why I still use Irish Spring, because when I take my shower at home, it still reminds me I'm that close to going back here and smelling like that every day again. Using that powdered detergent that y'all get that makes your skin itch. I'm that close to making that decision again and being right back here, because all it takes is one bad decision for me to end up right back here incarcerated, throwing my life away or worse, end up deceased where, my family is mourning me. You know, that my family has to come through these holiday seasons and be like, man, it'd be so much nicer if Chris was here. You know, like those are the things that go through my head today. I don't want to put that on my family today. You know, like I've gotten to a point where, you know, I'm comfortable with like having my family back in my life because I know that I won't cause that pain again. You know, I'm not going to sit here and, like I said, I won't say I'm perfect. Like I'm going to cause pain because I'm not perfect. There will be days where I make wrong decisions and I'll make other people feel less than. I'll do things like that. That will happen. But what I know I won't do is I know I won't leave somebody's life. I know that if you want me, if I want to be in your life, I'm not going to leave it again. I know that much. Because it feels good to be loved. Right. I fought so long for not have love in my life because it was easier for me to make the choices that I was making when I didn't feel like I was hurting anybody. But the reality is I was still hurting people. You know, my family still mourned over me while I was alive, you know? And that's something, like I said, there's some things that like, I'll never be able to get back. Right. Like I won't be able to ever tell my mom and dad, I'm sorry. Like, you know, that's something I'll never get to experience. You know, I remember when my dad passed away. It was about 3 weeks before my dad passed away. And he called me into the room that he was in, you know, because he had signed a do not resuscitate order. He was at home. And he called me in the room and he was like, man, he's like, I'm proud of you. Right. And I broke down crying because I was like, I knew what I was doing. There was nothing he should be proud of what I was doing. I was jobless. I was, you know, stealing his debit card while he's dying to go out and, you know, get the next one. I was, you know, taking stuff from him to go out and keep using. I would lie to him. Hey, I need $20 to go put gas in the car. And I'd run straight to somebody and buy $20 worth of something, you know, like and he was like, I'm proud of you. And I was like, man, what a fraud, you know? And like something like, I'll never be able to say, hey, I'm sorry that that I lied to you that day, you know? And hopefully through my process, I'll be able to find a way to come to terms with the fact that that's who I was at that time. Obviously, you can see how emotional it gets. It still gets me to this day. I'm not okay with it. I'm still not okay with who I was during that period. That's a process that'll happen. I hope, you know, when it's time. I don't try to rush it. You know, when I get to the point where I get to that level of my program, hopefully me and my sponsor will sit down and we'll find a way to that I can come to terms with it. Because there's no giving it back. There's no going back and doing that, you know, like doing that over. I don't get another shot at it anymore. You know, I'm so happy, like I said, that my sister's still in my life. You know, my dad's sister is her daughter is the one getting married. Like, I'm still happy that they're in my life. Like they wrote a card to me, like I said, and, you know, we got a wedding on October 5th and we'd like you to be here. And my aunt is actually the one who wrote me the card, not my cousin who's getting married. And so my first thought was like, does my cousin even want me there? So like I got to get, you know, I got on Facebook because I didn't have her phone number. I got on Facebook Messenger and I messaged her. I was like, hey, just a heads up, like your mom invited me to the wedding and like I want to make sure you're okay with me being there. Because the last time they saw me was at my dad's funeral and I was in bad shape. Like I couldn't put a thought together. I couldn't stand up. I couldn't, you know, I was inebriated at my father's funeral. I don't remember any of it. She said, yeah, absolutely. She did. She said, yeah, absolutely. We'd love to have you. And then I said, well, you know, give me your number. And, you know, we exchanged numbers. And on Christmas, I woke up and I said, Merry Christmas. And she said, you too. And, you know, so we're starting to develop that relationship again. You know, that's another thing I gave away. I gave that relationship away. I gave the ability for that to be an option in my life today. But just by doing the work, like, and it was something that popped up at the bottom of it. They said, we're real proud of your accomplishments is what the bottom of the card said. And I'm thinking, so my first thought was like, how do you know what I'm doing? Like, how do you know this? Right. Like, so I go on Facebook and I'm looking for my aunt on Facebook and she don't even have one. So I'm thinking like, how the hell does she even know like what accomplishments I'm making? Which leads me, it tells me everything. People are talking about my accomplishments today. Like, that's crazy to me. Like, people trust that I'm going to do the right thing and they're proud of what I'm doing and they talk about it when I'm not even in the room. And there's nothing that feels better than that, you know, to that extent. And like I said, for them to want me back in their lives today, you know, I started growing my beard when I got clean. You know, the last day I used, when I went to jail, I said, I refused to put that straight edge on my face. And I didn't. So for 9 months or about 10 months while I was incarcerated, I refused to put it on. And it's been growing ever since. And I made the decision the other day that when October rolls around, I'll have been home from jail for 3 years at that point. I'm going to shave it off to be at her funeral. Sorry. at her wedding, because the last time they saw me, I was sloppy. I was messed up. I looked terrible. Right. And I want to look as good as possible for her day. I want it to be about her. Right. So I'm going to shave it off. It's just hair. I can grow it back. Right. So I've made a decision that there's a point where I'm going to take it off, because when I first grew my beard, I was like, I want to see the recovery. Right. I want to see how long I've been clean. And so when I look in the mirror, I can see how long it's been. I can see the progress. I don't need that. I don't need that visual reminder anymore. I know the progress. I get to go out, I get to go out and get in my car today. I'm going to stop and get me something to drink on the way, and I'm going to go to my home group, and then I'm going to go home and lay in my bed. I see the accomplishments all throughout my life today. When I show up to work every day, they know that people trust that I'm going to be at work and I'm going to do my job. Like, I'm there every single day. I've taken one sick day in 2 years. Like that's something I'm proud of, because people trust that I'm there. I'm responsible for stuff today. Like, I see these accomplishments in my life. I see the things I should be proud of, and I'm proud of me today. And that's something I couldn't say, 2 years ago, all the way till I was from 12 up until 2 years ago. I couldn't say that. I could not tell you that I was proud of myself. I couldn't do that. And that's probably one of the best gifts of recovery that I have today, is understanding that I'm proud of me today. I'm okay with the person I am today. I'm not always the proudest of the stuff that I do, because I'm human and I still make mistakes. Right. But I'm proud of the overall person that I am today. I know that I'm a better person than I'm not today. And I know that through continued work and effort, I'll become a better person tomorrow, hopefully, than I was today. And if I keep doing that, then I become, when I get to 40 years clean, I might be on John's level. Right. I might get to the point where I master some of the stuff that he's mastered, and figured out some of the stuff that he's figured out, and be able to do some of the things that he does. Because without people like that, I don't know where I'd be in life. Like I said, when I first came here, I came here just trying to duck court, do a 28-day program, so probation would leave me alone so I can get out and do what I want to do. And hopefully, excuse me, hopefully they wouldn't chase me down too much and I could go back to doing what I want to do. But through the, coming back time and time again, because I did it 3 times, right? I didn't do it once. I didn't just get it right the first time. It's 3 times I had to come through the program before I figured it out. And like John said, I was doing some pretty heinous stuff the last time I was there. I'm forever grateful for the fact that they forgave the stuff that I did, and they saw a better version of me than I saw in myself at the time. Because if it was the roles were reversed and I was the one making a decision on if I should be allowed back, I would have said, hell no, absolutely not. There's no way that guy is going to be successful here. He needs to go somewhere else and figure it out and then come back. And where I was at, I would have turned my back on myself, or anybody that was like me. And because of the fact that there's people that, have figured out more than I've figured out, they took me back, and here I am, able to stand up here and do this today. It's an honor to be able to walk back into a jail after being incarcerated for so long, and be able to talk to people and be able to leave at the end of the day when I'm done, when I want to leave, not told when I get to leave. I get to leave when I want. And I do it. So I'm also there's a group called H&I through Narcotics Anonymous. It's hospitals and institutions. I'm also in that group as well. And so I go once a month, I go into James River Juvenile, which is the old Beaumont Correctional, for the juveniles. And I speak to the juveniles as well. So I do the same thing in a juvenile facility, once a month. And I remember the first time I walked through, I still had, I had my medallion on me, right? So I had the metal coin in my 5th pocket, that you get for your year marks. Because I carry it with me on me every day. It's actually in the car now. And I walk through the metal detector and it goes off and I stop, right? And the officer just keeps walking. He don't even care that the metal detector went off. That's the kind of trust that they gave me. He don't even know who I am. But it was weird to me, because I don't know if anybody's ever been in juvenile. When you're in juvenile, you got to get on the right side of the wall. You got to walk with your hands behind your back, no talking. And immediately as I walked through that metal detector and they popped that door and I was inside the facility, my hands went behind my back and I went to the right side of the wall still. It's still it was so weird how quickly I could revert right back to being that person. So I know that guy's still in me. I know, because I know how to get in jail, and I know how to duck the rules, and I know how to make it look really good and do what I want to do, kind of fly below the radar. And it took me some time before I started walking around with the COs on the left side and that kind of stuff. But it's still to me that was just one of the most shocking things is how quickly I reverted back to that 16-year-old kid who's in juvenile the first time, following the rules with his hand behind his back. And I'm, here I am, 37, 38 years old. I'm, just like that, it kicked right back in, just being in the facility. But the cool part is I got to leave again. When I was done, I got to go in there. I have my, do what I do, and I got to leave. And that's the coolest thing to me in the world. Because before that, I'd never been able to walk into a jail and walk out when I want. When I walked into jail, it was like whenever the judge told me I can go, and then DOC, and then intake, and however long they want to take doing it. They get to do what they want. When I go into jail, I give all power over my being, and I'm at the mercy of whoever's has decision-making capabilities over me. And when I'm done, I'm like, all right, we're wrapped up. They pop the doors, and I can walk through now. And I've done it so many times that I hit my own buzzers, and I just go back there with no CO. Like, that's cool. I can just freely walk into a juvenile lockdown facility, and nobody question why I'm there, or if I'm there, what I'm there for. I know where to go. I go there. I do my part, and I leave. And it's cool because if I was, I don't know if it would have made a difference for me, because I was a knucklehead when I was a kid, right? And so I don't know if it would have made a difference for me, but obviously, we're here, talking now. I'm 40 years old before I kind of almost figured this out, right? If I don't know if it would have been if I was 15 years old, if somebody would have came in there and delivered the same message, if I would have heard it then, and maybe not, it would have changed the course of my life. And so that's why I go to the juvenile facility instead of going to a prison or somewhere else, because maybe I can plant that seed in there's some 12-year-old kids in there that are there doing long-term bids. Maybe I can plant a seed that when that 12-year-old gets out being 16, 17 years old, he comes home and doesn't make that next choice and goes right back. Because I know a lot of the lifestyle, what they're going back to. I know it because I lived it. And I know how easy it is to get drawn back into it. So that's another passion of mine, is to be able to drive out there. Plus it's a nice drive. It's like a 45-minute drive through the country where I get to have time by myself, put the music on, and kind of just cruise and figure out what I'm going to talk about that day. And 99% of the time when I go in there, I just go in there and ask them how their day was, and we just start a conversation. That's all it really ends up being. And I try to, because I know when I was 15 where my brain goes. So I just try to give them the opposite view, right? Because I got told early on when I got here is that every defect can be countered with a spiritual principle, right? So if I'm being manipulative, all I got to do is be honest. That's the difference, right? So I can teach them how to be honest in that situation instead of trying to manipulate, because 50% honesty is still lying, because you're leaving stuff out. So those are the things that are cool to me to teach, because I practice those today. That's why I tell myself, I don't know. All right. So I drove here right today, right? I had to look around because I don't have a license, right? I did. I had to make sure there was no garden here because I didn't want to be followed out of here, because that's why I say I'm not perfect, right? I don't do everything perfect. I put the cart before the horse. Well, look, I know that I know what it is, right? And this is what, the fear came in, right? Because I went back to school. So I'm actually a college student now. And, the school gave me a bunch of money for going to school. And they put it in my account. They dropped $9,000 into my account overnight. And I was like, I gotta buy a car with this, because if I leave it sitting there, I'm going to spend it on stupid stuff, because I'm also impulsive, right? So I went and bought the car. Well, then I got it registered. I got it insured. I got all that stuff through somebody else's name, and I drive it every day. I drive it to work. I drive to the gym. I don't, that's what I'm saying. And that's why I say part of the reason why I do that, and why I talk about it when I go to meetings and stuff, is because people hold me accountable. If you know that I'm doing something wrong, I'm telling y'all now when I'm doing something wrong. If you see me again, next time ask me if I got my license back, because I'm eligible for it. I'm just being lazy and not going and doing it. That's really what it boils down to. All I got to do is give them some money and take a test over, and I can drive again legally. So that's why I do that. I tell on myself, because I know. Well, what somebody told me is that the other day was sex is like a frozen pizza. Even when it's bad, it's still good. So it is it's still, if I get arrested, I get arrested, right? That's the thing. I understand that there's consequences to my actions today. And my sponsor asked me when I did this, he asked me, he's like, are you ready to accept the consequences if you get caught? And I said,
do I turn it
absolutely.
on or you turn it on?
He said, then I can't really tell you no, because you're going to do it anyway. So if I get caught, I get caught. Then I'll deal with that when I deal with it. Hopefully I don't. I try my best. I check when I get out the car every morning at 4, I get out, I start the car, I get out, and I check the lights to make sure all my lights are good. I do everything in my power to make sure that I don't get arrested. I don't speed. I don't do anything to draw attention. My windows aren't tinted. I don't have loud music going. You know, I do all the things I can to like look like a normal person just going to places. So I do what's in my power. I can only control what I can control. All it's going to take though is for me one night to, you know, go out at 4 o'clock in the morning, there'd be a checkpoint right there at the end of my road, and I'm stuck in it, and I'm hit. It has nothing to do with what I'm doing, right? You know, but like that was something that I did. Those are choices that I make, right? I say that because I tell you, I'm not perfect. I didn't get everything right along this process, right? Like I made mistakes. I still make mistakes to this day. But by telling on myself, like I just did, and you know, now I got I don't know how many people, probably about 15, 20 people here that can hold me accountable. If y'all ever see me back, ask me, like I said, ask me if I got my license. I went to a meeting the other day, and there was like 150 people because I was speaking at some young lady's 3-year celebration. And I did the exact same thing. I told on myself in the middle of a meeting. So now I've got 150 other people that can call me out every time they see me. Hey, man, what's up with your license, man? You doing it? Now I got people that are going to hold me accountable and are going to push me to do better. Because left to my own devices, I think I'm doing all right.
You know, this is Facebook Live. The whole world knows.
It doesn't matter to me. Like I said, it's nothing that I'm not ashamed of the decisions I make today. I don't have secrets, right? Like I tell on myself when I do things wrong, I tell on myself today. You know, and like I said, because of that, I got people that are going to help me out. People that, like, if I asked, I could probably get somebody to come pick me up every morning and take me home, you know, because they don't want to see me get arrested. It's easier for me to have a car and drive, right? That's all it really boils down to. I'm taking the easy way out. With that being said, I have started the process to get my license. I drove down to Williamsburg courts a couple weeks ago. I was going up to Pennsylvania to go to a Steelers game, which is the first Steelers game I ever went to. And I went out to Williamsburg because I took that day off work. So I drove down to the courthouse and I got there and I got all the paperwork I need to get it back. And now I got to go to the DMV and I got to get all the paperwork from there and give them a bunch of money. And so I'm starting the process, right? Like I'm not just not doing it. But I have to tell on myself, because if I don't tell on myself, then none of y'all will ever know that I'm doing something wrong. You know, it makes it look like all this shit up here is shiny when the reality is I'm not. You know, I still make mistakes. You know, and without telling on myself, like I would never have the opportunity for y'all to, like, you know, check me on my behavior, right? It's as simple as that. I don't get better by pretending that I got everything figured out. It's just that simple for me. And, you know, and like I said, it's an absolute shock to me that I'm where I am today. You know, like I said, if you would have told me 2 years ago, like I said, when I got out of jail, that, you know, I'd be walking into a jail, you know, having a conversation, telling my story, telling on myself in jail about breaking the law. If you would have told me that, you know, if you'd have told me I was going to do that, I was like, there's no way I would have ever told anybody that. You know, here I am 2 years later, and I'm comfortable with where I'm at. You know, like I said, it's not perfect, but I try to be better today than I was yesterday. And hopefully, if I keep doing the next right thing, tomorrow I'll be better than I was today. And if I do that, I'll put together a pretty good life, and I'll be one that I'm finally proud of when I pass away. You know, so thank y'all for letting me come out and share with y'all.
Good job. You were doing good up until that breaking. Hey, give me that for a minute. They're both live, right? Well, you know, Marshall probably going to tune in, him and Brenda. They probably eating dinner overlooking the ocean down in Miami. Anybody want to say hi to Marshall?
Hey, Marshall.
Ah, anybody miss him?
You're missed. Yes, you're missed.
You missed, huh? Y'all doing all right? Y'all got any questions about anything? Any questions for Chris? Are we good? Yep. We'll call today. Yep. See y'all in 2 weeks. Hey, look, don't be a stranger now. Probably won't get to see you again until next year. Y'all picked up on that. All right, I'll see y'all next year. I love you. Merry Christmas.